poor bride. She's been standing there for hours waiting for the groom. I heard a woman's whispering voice. It's truly so sad. I can't imagine how sad she's feeling. Another woman replied in a hushed tone. Do you think the groom has ditched her? A man whispered in a low voice. That would be too sad. Please don't say that. Another woman replied with what seemed to be genuine sadness in her voice. I stood silently in front of the altar in a white wedding dress that was far too elegant for my tastes and far too heavy for my comfort. The overly high heel shoes that I was wearing was starting to hurt my feet, and my legs were starting to feel sore from standing still for too long. I clenched and then unclenched my hands together for the 100th time, or something along those lines, since I had already lost count. The sequined lace fabric of the dress that covered my arms in a long sleeve was itchy, not that anyone cared. I didn't choose this dress. I have never met my groom. I was in love with another man. Most of all, I didn't want to get married. Yes, me, Melissa Maxford, is being forced into a contract marriage with the heir of the largest global mafia syndicate. It was cold inside the white marble church. However, I was sweating in discomfort. I don't know how long I've been standing here just waiting for my future husband to arrive. It must have been at least a couple of hours, and everyone else have gotten restless and anxious. If this had been a wedding that I wanted, I would have felt so worried that the groom has not shown up. However, the truth is, I didn't care if he never shows up. Actually, it would be for the better for us all if he never showed up. Then the wedding would be called off, and my grandmother and I can return to our normal and peaceful life. I glanced sideways to see my frail and very sick granny sitting in a wheelchair with a nurse standing close behind her. I wish this wedding or whatever would be over quickly so that she can return to rest at the hospital. My grandmother was very old, and recently I had discovered that she was very sick. The doctors couldn't tell me how much longer she had left, but even my untrained eye could tell that it wasn't very long. Where's the groom? A man asked in a hushed voice. Good questions. We've been waiting for almost 3 hours already. Another man replied before yawning. Shh! Be quiet. The boss will kill you if he hears, another man hissed to the other two. Has someone found him yet? Another voice asked seriously. I sent a bunch of men from my squad already. It shouldn't take much longer, someone else replied, but I couldn't sense much conviction from his voice. Don't stare at the boss. He'll kill you if he sees you staring. One of the men hissed. That's right, he's definitely not in a good mood, another one said with a sigh. What is that damn son of his doing? The other said in a very soft whisper. Exactly, it's his wedding and he's not even here, another man replied in agreement. That kid is supposed to take over after this father? What a rotten joke. An old man spoke up. Not so loud, the boss will hear you. The man next to him said in a hurry. If only his brother was still alive. The old man continued without much care. Let's discuss this later. I hope he turns up soon. This church is fucking cold. One of the men said, and I couldn't agree more. At least they were wearing suits. My arms were covered only with thin and see-through lace. The old priest standing in front of me looked pale and stressed with what was going on. Poor old man. I wonder what he did to deserve this. He's been standing still for as long as I have, and his legs must be killing him at his age. Perhaps we should postpone, the old priest suggested hesitantly in a small voice. Shut up, old man, I'll shoot you in the face! The mastermind behind this whole wedding ordeal shouted at the top of his lungs. Oh my God, is that a gun? It's a gun. Right? It's real, right? My eyes widened in shock, and I wished that I could just disappear from this place. I must be stuck in a bad dream, I tried to convince myself as I closed my eyes. My body shook in fear. I looked over at my granny. Thankfully, she had not died from a heart attack from the shock. I opened my eyes, and my worst nightmare was confirmed. This was really happening, and I was not in a dream. The reality was that the most influential mafia boss was pointing a gun at the old priest. The mafia boss who had forced me into this contract marriage was red in the face and has resorted to threatening the priest with a gun. The Torex Mafia gang was bad news. When the boss told me Hayden's first name, I didn't need to ask for his last name. If he was heir to the Torex gang, then his last name is simply Torex. The rumor has it that the man who established the Torex family changed in last name to Torex and named the gang the same way. All members of the Torex family and their members are supposed to have a wolf tattoo somewhere on their body. Once again, I didn't know if this rumor was true or not. The Torex gang is world famous and lived their lives above the law. Their business and evil deeds are common knowledge, even to a normal person like me who had nothing to do with the Mafia. Their business network spanned multiple continents and countries and involved businesses in many industries. Some of their businesses were ran outwardly as a legal and successful conglomerate, while others were completely underground. I didn't know everything about their business, obviously, but what I, or the average person with eyes and ears, would know was that they had businesses in tourism, healthcare, and entertainment. Plus, all the other shady and illegal things that a mafia gang is supposed to be involved in, such as human trafficking, drugs, casinos, arms trade, etc. To be fair, no proof has ever been found of their illegal activities, but that's probably the way they live above the law, by paying the law keepers. Regardless of whether rumors were true or not, the Torex and all their members were bad news. As it happens, I'm about to marry one right now, and none other than the next heir to the Torex family. I didn't know where life would take me, but never in my wildest dreams imagined that it would take me here. Well, that is if the groom in question ever turns up, which I pray that he never would. The priest recoiled in shock as he put both hands up above his head in surrender. I hoped he didn't piss his pants. Actually, I couldn't tell if he had, but I could tell that he had started openly crying in fear. I better shut up and wait until this event ends if I want to keep my head in one piece and on my neck and shoulders. Where is my son? Where's Hayden? The boss screamed at the top of his lungs. Great, so his name is Hayden. Not only have I never met my husband-to-be before, I didn't even know his name. I also haven't seen a photo of him, and so I didn't know what he looked like. Not that I was interested. If I had no choice but to marry him anyways, what difference does it make whether he's as handsome as a prince or as ugly as a beast? The boss turned around and started waving his gun at the rows upon rows upon rows of men dressed head to toe in back suits, the standard uniform of the Mafia, it seems. It was a rare sight to see men of various ages shift uncomfortably in their seats, just like little kids who have been caught doing something mischievous as they looked anxiously at each other. It was obvious that no one wanted to deliver bad news to the boss. I'm sure that Hayden is on the way, boss. You don't need to worry. A man who I assumed was one of the boss's trusted men said as he tried to reassure the boss. I don't need to be worried. Hayden is late, the boss screamed, his face getting redder from anger. He's on the way, boss. Please wait just a little longer, the man quickly said. Do you know where he is? Have you found him? Answer me. The boss continued to scream as he grabbed the man by his collar and started pulling hard on it. The men looked at each other while they thought about how to deal with the boss and his violent temper. I could tell that Hayden hadn't been found. To be honest, I don't blame him for not turning up. I imagined that he felt the same way that I did. Who in their right mind would want to marry a woman he has never met or heard of before? Just like I didn't want to marry him, he clearly doesn't want to marry me. Thank you, Hayden, or whoever you are. Thank you for not turning up. If this marriage fails because he didn't turn up, then it won't be my fault. I prayed so desperately like I have never prayed before. I wasn't a religious person, and I hardly believed in God. However, if God is real, please just let me return to my old peaceful life back in the quiet countryside. Master Hayden has arrived! What? Perfect! My Hayden is finally here! The boss shouted happily, a smile blooming on his face. I, on the other hand, felt like I was doomed for all eternity. Why did he have to turn up now? Did he change in mind about this marriage? I whirled around as fast as I could in my heavy and overly puffy wedding dress to face the direction of the church's entry. The large wooden door slowly opened, so dramatically slowly, like we were really caught up in a movie. I held my breath as I waited for my husband-to-be to walk through the door. I wondered what he would look like. If his father had to go so far as to arrange a marriage for him, then he's probably old, ugly, and unable to find his own girlfriend despite the wealth that he seemed to possess. Hayden! The boss cried out in excitement as he clapped his hand joyfully as he saw his son entering the church. I wasn't quite sure what I was expecting, but what I saw was out of this world. Forget what Hayden looked like. I couldn't even see his face clearly. Hayden didn't walk in on his own. To be exact, it seemed that he couldn't walk on his own or support his own weight at that moment. Two tall men, dressed entirely in black with sunglasses on, supported Hayden on both sides by draping his arms on their shoulders. Oh, great. Hayden seems to be unconscious? As far as I could tell, Hayden was being dragged into the church by two men. He seemed unconscious and unaware of his surrounding and what was going on. As the men walked further into the church, I could see Hayden closer and clearer. Although his face was not clearly visible because his body was bent forward, with his head hanging low, I could tell that he wasn't old and ugly. Hayden was tall, very tall. The two men in black supporting him were much larger and taller than standard men, but the hunched over Hayden was taller. He had light blonde hair and wasn't dressed for the role of the groom. That's for sure. When the two men walked him down the aisle, or more like dragged him, I finally understood why, and so did most guests in the church. The unpleasant stench of alcohol was so intense that I was sure that everyone could smell it. My nose twitched at the smell, and I instinctively started fanning the air in front of my nose by waving my hand. Hayden was dead drunk. From the way he was dressed, I could surmise that the two men dressed him while he was unconscious. Hayden didn't have a shirt on, but someone did put white pants, a white blazer suit, and a black leather pair of shoes on him. His well-defined chest muscles and the six-pack of his stomach was clearly visible through the opening of his white unbuttoned blazer. So, this is my husband-to-be. To be honest, he didn't look as bad as I imagined he would be. He seemed young, around my age if I had to guess, and he was tall, well-built, and I guess good-looking. That, however, did not stir my heart at all. No matter what, I did not want to marry this man. I wanted to ask if we could go ahead with the wedding ceremony with the groom clearly unconscious, but I was afraid his father would blow my brains out, literally, with his gun. I kept silent instead as I waited to see what would happen next. The guests, which consisted mostly of the Mafia gang members, started whispering to each other in low, hushed voice. I couldn't catch what they were saying, but I had a good guess. I could surmise from what I've heard before that this Hayden guy had a little bit of a mixed popularity poll amongst his fellow Mafia gang members. Is the groom even conscious? The old priest whispered so softly that I almost couldn't hear him. Exactly. Thank you for pointing that out, priest.